Who? What? When? Where? And why is the Nar Shaddaa? How are you, Brian? And what do you think about Nar Shaddaa?
I am doing excellent, thank you very much. I hope everyone out there listening is doing well, and welcome back to our KOTOR 2 travel journals. We are headed to Nar Shaddaa, and what do I think about Nar Shaddaa? I think it is a really interesting, really dark and dreary place that is going to take us into the annals of the city. We're going to learn a lot about our crew of the Ebon Hawk this time around, learn more about Mitra Surik, and pick up a couple new passengers and be on our way. But Nar Shaddaa, I think, is a really interesting place. What do you think about it?
Yeah, Nar Shaddaa, it's kind of like the lower levels of Coruscant, but that's like the top part of the planet is the lower levels of Coruscant, and it just kind of like goes down from there. I guess a little bit like the levels of hell, So I kind of think we're ripe to see just some Nar Shaddaa, whether it's in animation or in live action in a TV show or a movie in the future. And how I was introduced to Nar Shaddaa was The Force Unleashed, and I think we have a little bit of a Easter egg clip if you want to hear that. But Starkiller is kind of like meeting Juno Eclipse, and he's like, well, can you take me to Nar Shaddaa? Because he has no social skills. And I'm like, it just kind of stuck with me. I'm like...
Yeah.
Now you'll be able to spy on any suspect ships within the entire system. You are one of Vader's spies.
You don't need to know anything about my missions except where I'm going. Now I need to jump to Nar Shaddaa. Can you handle that?
Of course.
Yeah, so where did you learn about Nar Shaddaa?
Yeah, so on a side note, I don't even need to play Force Unleashed now because I have Cassia able to reenact it for me, which is even better. I'm pretty sure. But Nar Shaddaa, aka the Smuggler's Moon. It is a moon of Nal Hutta, famous for being basically where the Hutt crime syndicate and all of their bounty hunters and stuff reside. And I think probably my first actual introduction to it, kind of just thinking off of the top of my head, was probably KOTOR 2. I mean, it's a location that you go to in the game, obviously. That's why we're talking about it. But Nar Shaddaa has a long history in Star Wars. So its kind of first mention was in the 1970, well, it came out in 1978, but it was the original comic run for Star Wars, and episode 16 had a mention to it, and then just, tons of mentions in Legend material. And, all you Legends fans out there, don't be too worried, because there's also been a ton of mentions of it in the, canon stuff in books and in shows, everything, tons and tons of mentions of it. It is the home world of Aurra Sing, everyone's favorite bounty hunter, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I think the first time I learned of Nar Shaddaa was stepping off of the Ebon Hawk and experiencing it for myself in KOTOR 2.
Yeah, and it's a good introduction point, I would say. So our last travelogue was Telos, I believe. And then after you get to Telos, Atris kind of tasks you with finding the Jedi Masters. And I believe you can go in any order to any planet, but I think the traditional starting point planet, when you kind of have free reign in KOTOR 2, is Nar Shaddaa, because you're introduced to more characters there. So did I miss any of the how did we get to Nar Shaddaa, or...
No, you pretty much nailed it. Yeah, we're coming from Telos, and got tasked with finding the scattered Jedi Masters. And at this point in the game, right, you go to Paragus and then to Telos and the Citadel Station. That's kind of planned out for you. But then from that point, you can go to anywhere you want. But yeah, if you play it kind of in the most, chronological and most getting the most out of the story, Nar Shaddaa is going to be your next stop. And, that makes sense. It seems like Nar Shaddaa would be a place where secrets are kept. So if you're looking for, lost Jedi Masters, this might be a good place to start out.
Yeah, and who do we meet there? We meet a Jedi Master, not to spoil anything too much, and then we meet some companions and some adversaries. Who do we meet that you think is cool?
Yeah, so we meet some adversaries. We actually meet a couple people, because there's a couple of different sections of Nar Shaddaa. So you've got like the refugee sector, which are, according to legend, there's like millions of refugees that have been displaced onto Nar Shaddaa from, as a result from the Mandalorian and Jedi Civil War. So we meet a lot of refugees. There's like an entertainment sector, so we meet a bunch of like Pazak players, and then there's like the kind of the upper level where Voga the Hutt is, who I guess runs this section. So we meet Voga the Hutt and kind of get to do a little bit of side mission stuff, carry over from Telos there. But we meet kind of three important characters for our story, or three that I can think of, and that is Mira and Hanhar, and then everyone's favorite droid, Goto. I don't know, one of those.
I call him Goto.
Goto, yeah.
Even though they're probably like, the proper name is Goto, and I'm like, no one has time to pronounce that, But yeah, and Goto, if you watch our YouTube channel, was the companion I ended up being most like, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's who I would choose.
Yeah,
so.
That's right. I think what that really is saying is that you're the most like Mitra Surik, because, Goto decides to go with us because of Mitra Surik. So I think that is reflective on you being the most like our protagonist here. But yeah, definitely some interesting characters for sure. Just to kind of run through a little bit of background here. So Mira, I think is really kind of interesting, and she will join the party if you are playing as a female exile, I believe. Is that right?
It's actually if you are a light-sided or a neutral exile.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. See, even I learned something. But Mira's story is really interesting because she was like an orphan and was adopted into a Mandalorian family. But bummer, her Mandalorian family all lost their lives. So Malachor 5, when the Shadow Generator activated. So she actually ended up being a refugee, and that's how she ended up on Nar Shaddaa in the first place. So I think that kind of her backstory is very interesting, and ultimately how she found her way into the company, basically, of someone who started this mass disaster that displaced her from her family.
Yeah, and just when you hear Mira's story, it tugs at the heartstrings, and I think some people could say Mira's story is all over the place, but for me it kind of goes all over the place in ways that make sense, and kind of contrasting that with At and Rand's story, which kind of feels all over the place. Like, maybe he's not the most reliable narrator, but
yeah.
Like, sometimes I'm just like, this doesn't quite add up, which maybe it doesn't quite add up because he's not the reliable narrator, but I just kind of found it interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And then, adversary to Mira, we have Hanhar, who's another bounty hunter. Do you know what can you tell us about Hanhar? Cassie, any interesting bits about him?
He is not fun to be around. It's not an adorable teddy bear Wookiee. It's like this is a rabid grizzly bear, stay away from it kind of Wookiee. And he is very, I guess, obsessed with Mira because he doesn't like having a life debt to her. And Mira's against killing, so it's just an interesting dynamic they have.
Yeah, for sure. That's really funny. He describes it exactly like I have one line here for Hanhar, and it says, "Not a nice guy, wants to kill Mira, but bad news, Mira saved his life once, so Wookiee life debt." So yeah, that's Hanhar. I wonder, I couldn't find anything, but I don't know if Hanhar was any sort of like inspiration for Black Chrysanthemum, who most people probably recognize from Book of Boba Fett, but I think was introduced in like the Dr. Aphra comics. kind of a similar sort of Wookiee there, I guess, in that sense. And then obviously Goto, our droid companion, was like a supercomputer sort of thing, akin to like Jarvis from Iron Man. Basically was made for the Republic to serve as like the supercomputer to oversee like all of the restoration projects, which is kind of strange to think about. But Goto is just kind of a practical thing, and really kind of joins up because he thinks that his job is going to be easier and able to be fulfilled if he supports Mitra Surik instead of standing in her way. So
yeah. And I think one thing that could definitely be adapted out nowadays is like having some of your companions who are female dressing up in a bikini, So that's just one thing I was kind of thinking of, and I was like, oh yeah, I kind of hated that. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So
there's a lot of questionable costuming choices from the KOTOR 2 development team as you go through the game for sure. As we left Telos and even here as we get to the super yacht of Goto. So but yeah, those are kind of the big three main players. Like Cassia mentioned, you get Mira. I guess if you're doing kind of a light side playthrough, and then Hanhar is obviously the opposite of that if you're going dark side, and then Goto it just joins up whether you want him to or not. And then you'll never hear from him again because you're obviously not going to put him into your party because that wouldn't be that much fun. So
I thought he was on Malachor, but I mean, basically it's you never hear from him again. And a lot of dark-sided exile playthroughs, they'll make sure to go to Nar Shaddaa first and be neutral before they go full dark side, because they want to have Mira because she can become a Jedi and she's more interesting, So, because no more Wookiee Jedi was a rule under George Lucas, and so yeah, Hanhar is not a Jedi. That kind of would have been weird to see, or cool to see, I guess, but it didn't happen. Maybe in an alternate universe there is a Sith Hanhar. Or maybe he could have become light-sided. Who knows?
That's right. Yeah, maybe your good-naturedness will rub off on him. He won't be so quick to act in anger. I don't know for sure. It's hard to say. But I do know what is good to say is that there are a lot of really interesting kind of story beats here on Nar Shaddaa as we're going through. Now, these are just kind of quick travel guides, as you're heading to Nar Shaddaa, so you can stick this guide in your pocket and it'll help kind of lead your way, not intended to be a real deep dive. But Cassia, what are some of the good kind of side stories or lessons or missions or anything about Nar Shaddaa that, just strikes you and you think makes for interesting storytelling?
Just how big and expansive Nar Shaddaa is, really kind of stuck with me. But I think the number one thing that stuck with me and a lot of other people is, when you run into a homeless person on Nar Shaddaa, you're forced to, no matter what, you're forced into this conversation to either give him 5 credits or not give him 5 credits. And even if Kreia is not in your party, she's going to project her thoughts so you can hear them. It's like the famous quote, "Apathy is death," comes from this conversation, I guess. What does it mean? Who really knows? But
right. Only Kreia knows.
No matter which choice you make, Kreia will say it's technically wrong, but she says apathy is death. So what I get from that is whatever you do, there's going to be consequences, and basically you're going to make the wrong decision no matter what you do, but you have to engage with life. You have to engage with the path, and I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
Thank you, stranger. I won't forget your kindness.
Why did you do such a thing? Such kindnesses will mean nothing. His path is set. Giving him what he has not earned is like pouring sand into his hands.
Yeah, so I actually had a little bit written out about this here for kind of the next section as we get into like the atonement and purgatory part of Nar Shaddaa. But yeah, now is a really good time to talk about it since you brought it up. I think what she's trying to ask is, are you helping or are you hurting by trying to aid this man? Because ultimately, this man is in this position because of things that you did. So is it even possible for you to help him now since you put him there? Is it your responsibility to help him since you put him there? Or is what you did so bad it doesn't matter? Like, he can't be helped because of the actions you took were so terrible. And I think it's just kind of like this like thought experiment almost on that, where it kind of turns it around against you. It's not necessarily that you're helping or hurting this person, but are you doing it, from a place of compassion within yourself, or are you doing it from a place of trying to make yourself feel better from the wrongdoings that you've had?
Wow. I just learned something there. And I think people are going to be grappling with Krea's sayings in KOTOR 2 for many years to come. And I mean, my dream adaptation for KOTOR 2 is a college textbook. So you could get many, many discourses, I think, in philosophical treatises. Treatises? I think it's one of those words, but I should have looked it up beforehand, so I look smarter, but now I'm just like, but sorry about that. But, you could get so much mileage out of just Nar Shaddaa, and especially Krea, but that's the thing that stuck with me is the apathy is death.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, and that's really kind of the big takeaway, for me, and like you said, probably most players that played that game and really connected with it was kind of this initial sort of lesson/test from Krea. But there are other couple of cool parts there. I kind of liked because you do meet Voga the Hutt, and one of the things you can potentially be tasked with as you're leaving Telos is, since we blew up the mining facility, the responsibility falls on us to find a new fuel source, and you can kind of do that through your interactions with Voga, which I think that kind of side story is interesting. And then I think that kind of the whole section of the refugee sector is, really interesting and really parallels to, our own real world, and I think that that's really interesting, kind of, and how these crime syndicates and gangs sort of align themselves, kind of around the refugee sector and use it for their own kind of gain and advantage. I think that that's really kind of an interesting thing, and interesting stories could come out of that. And then there's another thing which I don't even know if it's interesting, but I think it's worth noting. We're going back to the ship, and someone runs up to us and says, "Hey, Ebonhawk, that's my ship."
I mean, I think it's kind of like a fun little Easter egg, and it's like, technically, is it even the exile ship, or is it on loan from Revan? I guess, does T3 have the keys? I don't know.
Yeah. T3 has the keys. He has the title to the Ebonhawk is loaded into his little processing core or something. But yeah, I always just thought that was funny as you're like getting ready to leave the place and someone runs up to you and says that they own the Ebonhawk, and you can either get dark side points and take him out, or you can tell him he can have the ship and you get light side points, and then he goes on the ship and there's a gang there and they take him out. So it's really a bad day for that guy anyways. So you should have just left well enough alone and let us go with the Ebonhawk. Did you have any other kind of high points from Nar Shaddaa, or should we go ahead and jump into the purgatory bit of it? Definitely the low points of Nar Shaddaa, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's kind of like there's bits of heaven, I think, in Nar Shaddaa. I think Mira definitely kind of represents the best of Nar Shaddaa. And I think most of Nar Shaddaa is neutral or dark side, so I think there's flavors of like hell, purgatory, and heaven on each of the planets, but Nar Shaddaa makes it obvious, I think. And that's kind of like a purgatory atonement story. Like, you kind of have to grapple with like hell, purgatory, and heaven. you know, and I don't know. What do you think the location represents?
Yeah, so I've been going through and kind of trying to place these into the steps of kind of the purgatory story, and the next step up would be Pride. Now, Dante described the Pride section as the prideful as being bent down with heavy weights, so they couldn't see the beautiful sculptures all around. And I think that here on Nar Shaddaa, I think that's kind of what the refugee sector is representing. You know, this abject kind of poverty and lives are weighing down, you know, just millions of people in this kind of closed-in undercity, and they're there because Mitra Surik's actions put them there, basically. And now she finds herself, you know, down in like the belly of this beast that she created, so to speak. And then coupled with that, you're taking on Mira now as an ally, who's going to basically serve as a reminder of this place, of this prideful place, through the remainder of the journey. And then I see kind of your escape through like the tunnels and like the Jek Tar as being, you know, a kind of moving on past the stage of purgatory as you're like coming out of, you know, out of the belly of this beast, so to speak. So that's kind of the purgatory bit that I see from it.
Yeah, I mean, there was an old character who guided Jason in the New Jedi Order. I think the name was Verigi. And I get Kreia vibes and Virgil vibes there. But yeah, did you ever read the old New Jedi Order, you know, and Jason's journey with it's probably like Verigi. I'm probably getting it wrong, and some person's going to be like, well, actually, it's Virgil. And I don't know, but...
No, I never did read any of the New Jedi Order stuff. Yeah, just kind of passed along by me. Those came out, I think, started in like 1999, so they were kind of ran alongside of the prequel trilogy. But yeah, I never got into any of those books.
Yeah, and to me, Kreia kind of represents like a Virgil darkly. You know, it's an interesting relationship the Exile and Kreia have. Like, I wouldn't say it's, like, good, but they learn from each other. And I don't know, like, I definitely just get the Virgil vibes from Kreia, and, like, yeah. So, it's just, where does the Ebon Hawk crew go after this traditionally? Is it to Onderon, or to Dantooine, or Korriban?
Yeah, so kind of now that we've wrapped up the Nar Shaddaa section here of our travel journey, we're going to strap back into the Ebon Hawk and make our way to kind of to Onderon, but we're going to have to make a bit of a detour to Duxon. First will be our next stop before we're able to get onto Onderon in pursuit of our next kind of mystery lost Jedi.
Yeah, and on Duxon we run into an old friend, which I'm excited about, because I love Mandalore the Preserver. Onderon and Duxon is probably my favorite planet, you know, in KOTOR 2. And we even see Onderon later on in the Clone Wars, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I might have to go back and rewatch some of the Onderon Clone Wars stuff to get ready for that and see if I can pick up any other parallels now that we're up to 139% KOTOR as canon. So we'll have to do that. And yeah, I'm excited. I've really been enjoying kind of this travel guide. We hope everyone out there listening has been enjoying the travel guides too. And we hope you join us next time as we make our next stop on Duxon.
All right. And may the Mandalore, the Preserver, be with you.